Hello and welcome to the FocusHoops WNBA Show with me, Darren, Paul, and we've got two very special guests right now. We're going to have three, I can promise you that, but right now, Greg can't be with us. So welcome, as always, Kaz. Kaz, how are you doing today? As we go to Kaz, there we go. Kaz Bullock, Manchester basketball royalty, how are you doing today? Quiet from Kaz to start proceedings. That's fine. We'll go over to Mikey. There we go. Michael HANSON-MORRIS, the 2019-20 WNBL D1 Coach of the Year. Mikey, how are you this evening?
Yeah, pretty good. A little tired. 5 a.m. finishes, catching up with all the games live, but looking forward to more basketball tonight as well.
It's going to be a really enjoyable show today. Just talking all things WNBA from the first couple of rounds. So let's get into things. We do have Greg joining us shortly. He is.
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Spent a whole weekend just watching WNBA games.
Brilliant. I mean, that's what better way to spend a weekend is that than watching a bunch of WNBA. Let's quickly have a look at how proceedings are looking with the WNBA standings. It is the Chicago Sky, the maybe surprise team at the top of the standings. They don't think so. Followed by Washington and Seattle, all on perfect records. Down at the bottom, Connecticut Sun, New York Liberty, and the Phoenix Mercury, all currently winless. So let us talk about the games that have been this weekend. So going along the bottom, we had 3 games on Saturday. Tipping off the whole WNBA season was the Seattle Storm and the New York Liberty. It was the Storm 87-71 over the Liberty. Breanna Stewart is back. She is back. She didn't miss a beat, as is Sue Bird. Let's start with Mikey. Mikey, what did you see in this first game? Because I know Saturday and Sunday we all binged every second of it because the group chat was quite lively on that one.
You're asking me to remember game 1 of 12 here, so
yeah.
Never mind, I might be a bit rusty. I think the key thing was for Seattle that Sue Bird and Breanna Stewart came back and looked like they hadn't really missed much of a beat at all. Both came in, really controlled the game. Obviously, the discussion going in was going to be Sue Bird versus Sabrina Ionescu, and Sue Bird won the matchup on the day and really controlled things for Seattle. Kept Sabrina quiet throughout the whole game. Obviously, her 3 didn't quite go down, but to be honest, I was quite impressed with New York, though. Obviously, they're a really super young team. I think they played 6 rookies on the night. They lost Kia Nurse early in the game as well, and it was always going to be a bit of an uphill battle, but they really came in. They had a couple of big runs. I think there was a 13 or 15-0 run in second quarter to tie it back up, and they really battled them. They showed a lot of promise for a young side going through. Ultimately, Seattle kind of just dominated the game and never really looked like losing it.
Yeah, we're going to obviously get into the big story of that game, which was Sabrina Ionescu. For me, that's the big story of the game, but we'll get there later. For me, Laisha Clarendon, hopefully I've pronounced her first name correctly, she really excelled for me. 20 points. Just made everything went through her hands, at least in the first half, which really excited me. Some people on Twitter and stuff, they were a little bit surprised maybe that she was playing so well. They weren't super keen on her game previously. I really enjoyed what I saw of Clarendon, and of course the Storm. They were something else. Kaz, what did you make of game 1? We're not going to go through every single game, but there's a few highlighted games that I think we are going to really look at.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine, thank you.
Perfect. Connection issues again in Manchester. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good game. Much like Mikey was saying before, Brianna Stewart and Sue Bird just look like they've just come straight out of 2018 back into it. Their injuries don't look, they look like they're healthy and they're well and playing really good. So that was really exciting to see. Sabrina, obviously, the debut that everyone wanted to see. I thought she did really well for what she was going up against. Defensive Player of the Year from last season with Natasha Howard. She had a really nice move where she crossed her over and took a shot on the shoulder at the top of the key there. But New York, she needs some help in New York. Leisha Clarendon and I forget. Is it Amanda Zawibi?
Yep.
They were out there shooting, and obviously the loss of Kia Nurse in the first quarter was quite a blow to them. But it looks like they do need some help. They need a bit of help off the bench there.
So let's go back to let's move on to another fixture from Saturday. The Los Angeles Sparks 99-76 winners over the Phoenix Mercury. And it's a real shame Greg isn't with us right now because, again, we had a little bit of fun at Greg's expense. Now, he's not going to go full Arsenal fan TV on it, but quite a surprising performance, I'd say. Maybe not the result, but the scoreline and the way the game turned out, I think, was a bit of a surprise to a lot of people, myself included. Kaz, let's kick off with you. What did you make of Sparks Mercury?
I thought this was a fantastic game. So I'm obviously a Sparks fan. I'm obviously wanting LA to win, but I didn't expect it to be quite the blowout that it turned out to be. It was a really close game in the first half, and then the third quarter, LA just took over. Nneka Ogwumike, one of the best players in the WNBA, she went 8 for 8 from the field, and Simone Augustus that they picked up from Minnesota last season, she went 6 for 6, and they've combined for the highest record of number of shots without misses by two teammates ever. And Simone Augustus is looking like a really good pickup there. She's giving them support off the bench. And what I liked actually in this game was the rotation that Derek Fisher was using. Everyone got involved. Tia Cooper, one of the rookies that they've got, was getting some good minutes, and everyone seemed to work really well. They gelled really well. Candace Parker looked healthy. Brittany Sykes had some really good. I think she was 6 points off fast breaks. She also had an amazing block on Brittany Griner. So Brittany Sykes is 5'9", Brittany Griner is 6'8", and she blocked her, and that seemed to sum up Phoenix's game a little bit. They looked a little bit lost out there in the second half, did Phoenix. Diana Taurasi looked healthy. Brittany Griner had quite a quiet game by her standards. I think 8 points, 9 rebounds. Skylar Diggins-Smith looked good, but they looked like they were sort of missing Duana Bonner a little bit. They just didn't seem very in sync. And I think I expected the Phoenix game to be quite a battle, to be quite a tough one, but it didn't really seem it when it took over in the second half.
Mikey, what stood out to you in this game?
Ultimately, it was a third quarter game, and you look at the score and go, yeah, it was a blow up. But actually, it only happened in the third quarter. I think Sparks were up 4 at halftime, I think it was, and then the third quarter was a 30-8 Sparks quarter, and then Phoenix won the fourth. So you kind of look at it and go, 10 minutes did all the damage really. But even in the first half, it was you felt like Phoenix were hanging on a little bit. And as Kaz summed up, Sparks did their damage, obviously, when you got two players not missing a field goal, but they kind of did it through depth. They had six players in double-digit scoring, and then anytime you do that, it's going to be a tough afternoon because it's so hard for the defense at this level to key on one or two players when all 5 players on court are capable of scoring as frequently as the Sparks were. And ultimately, they shot 56% from the floor, and anytime you do that, you're not really in danger of losing many games. And I think the big surprise was how ineffective Brittany Griner was. I think she's 4 of 10 from the floor. She had 5 turnovers as well, so she really struggled to get going. yeah, it was an interesting performance, but ultimately there's a lot of questions Phoenix taken, obviously, from that game and then last night, where their defense isn't where it needs to be. And they gave up 99, then it was 106 last night. So that's kind of to go away from this, that Phoenix's defense has got some solving to do in the next few days.
They gave up 27 turnovers as well to LA, which LA then turned into 38 points, which I think was a big problem that they need to look at as well.
So, Mikey, from a coaching point of view, how does a team go about preventing so many turnovers? Now, that was a real feature of the weekend. There was, especially early in games, because teams haven't played together for a bit. Everyone's a little bit rusty, even though the quality of the games was actually really, really high. There was a bit of sloppiness that we wouldn't expect. What can coaches be going about doing to limit turnovers?
I mean, ultimately, some of it is rust, and that's contributed to a lot of it, especially you think Phoenix-wise, they've got a lot of experience on the roster. They know how to deal with certain situations. And I think the turnover count was a lot lower last night. I don't have the exact figure off the top of my head, but ultimately, it's kind of on a style as well. You look at New York playing a bit more up tempo, and actually they're going to be kind of okay with the turnovers being high in certain situations where they're trying to push the fast break a little bit. So it's not necessarily one thing, and I don't think too many coaches are overreacting to kind of this first couple of games, just because the pre-season and kind of the few scrimmages they had was such short prep that everyone is just working their way in. So really, it'd just be focusing on the basics right now. I think a big thing across the league really this weekend was the amount of offensive fouls on screens. So perhaps some coaches are looking at tidying up the screen game a little bit on and off the ball. But yeah, I think some of it will just naturally come down over the next couple of weeks before coaches really start to look to address it in huge detail.
So the final game on Saturday, Indiana Fever 76, the Washington Mystics 101. Hines Allen going off for 24 and 10. Really impressive performance from her as well. Mitchell for the Indiana Fever, 25 points. So some really big solo performances all throughout the opening 4 games. Just very quickly, because I don't know if we need to go too deep into this, but we'll start with Kaz again. Kaz, just your overall thoughts on what you saw from the Mystics in their first matchup.
I loved it. I thought it was great. I have to say, they were one of the teams that surprised me this weekend. I didn't think they were going to come out kind of as strong as they have. And the whole team's just basically got a next woman up mentality. We know they've lost 4 of the 5 starters. And then you've got Maisha Hines-Allen scoring a career high on Saturday. And then Ariel Powers doing the same again 2 nights ago. They've got a really strong team. They've played together. They've not had too much, whilst they've lost the starters, they've not had too much turnover. So they still have kind of a core of players that have worked together. And I think that showed really well. Their shooting was ridiculous. I think at one point at halftime, they were shooting 70% from the field. And Indiana just looked very outmatched compared to them, just all the way through. Emma Miesemann wasn't quite as dominant as I'd maybe expected it to be. But maybe that's just her fitting into a new role. But yeah, they were one of the funnest teams to watch.
I think that's a brilliant way of describing them this weekend. The funnest. They really were. Let's move on to Sunday's games. Connecticut Sun 69-77 loss to the Minnesota Lynx. Chicago Sky 88. The Las Vegas Aces 86. Huge grudge match game. We're going to get into that in just a moment. And the final game of the weekend, Dallas Wings 95, Atlanta Dream 105. So, Connecticut Sun, a lot of people had them tipped at about 3/4 time to be, and that's a real Aussie rules way of putting it, but at 3/4 time, the Sun were about to win the WNBA championship. Is that fair to say to everybody? Mikey's not convinced. No?
A little bit early to be calling a championship 3/4 into the first game of the year.
Okay, well, maybe a little bit. That's a little bit strong, but they were very, very good. They looked real nice early on in that game, and they kind of blew up a little bit.
That's fair.
Thank you for that, Mikey. Let's look at that though. Is it a case? Do you think that Kurt Miller, he's riding his starters pretty strong, and that's causing them to, to run out of steam, run out of gas as they go through?
Was that sorry, it's directed to me.
That was directed to you.
It's hard to say. Like, obviously, every team's situation, we're still not quite sure what the full extent is in terms of what depth they actually have available, and who's actually suited up for games and fit to play, and all that stuff. So it's hard to say. I don't think anyone played more than 33 for Connecticut. I think that was more of an issue on Tuesday, where he kind of rode the starters a little bit more. But ultimately, yeah, it's some of that lack of games just come into it, and look, it's beyond that why they lost the game. Other than fatigue, all teams were going through it, but certainly it could be a factor early on in the year, just as teams start to find their feet again and get used to playing, that it was there. But yeah, it's hard to say it's too solely based on minutes.
Yeah, Kaz, I know this was something that you pondered whilst the games are going on. Were the Sun riding their starters too much, and that's why they ended up having that huge drop off in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of what we were seeing in the finals last year when we were looking when we rewatched them recently. So the starters are playing such heavy minutes compared to other teams and other players on the bench. Alyssa Thomas is just, I feel like she's been, and she's playing. She played nearly 40 minutes, I think, the other night, and then 35, 33, 32 on Sunday. There was a couple of times where she missed a layup that would have brought the teams quite close, and that's fatigue as well if she's playing nearly a full game. But you need her to have fresh legs so she can come out and make those big plays in the moments that you need them. They don't have a huge bench, Connecticut, but they've got enough players on it. So it surprises me a little bit why Kurt Miller doesn't go to some of the players that he's got. Maybe that'll change throughout the season. Maybe he's just trying something new. But it does surprise me that he's kind of continued to follow the path they were on last year.
Mikey, what did we make of DeWanna Bonner starting out for the Sun?
Yeah, I mean, she settled in really nicely, and kind of just on Kaz's point, I just had a quick look. Connecticut do have 3 of the top 7 players in minutes played so far through 2 games. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but that kind of alludes to it. And Bonner does lead the league in minutes. She's averaged 36. But yeah, she settled in really well. Obviously, you never quite sure how the transition's gone, but she looked really smooth. She added a lot to Connecticut on the wing. Kind of had the 3 going early, and then she kind of found that inside game a little bit. And she's got that real veteran presence that will just allow other players to play around her as well. So she's not too demanding of seeing the ball every time down the floor, which sometimes stars can be. And yeah, I thought she did a really nice job straight in.
Let's move on to the second game. The grudge match, like we said, it was a replay of the second round clash between the Chicago Sky and the Las Vegas Aces. And of course it did. The most predictable finish in the world. It went to a 3 from Ali Quigley, who I don't think had shot a 3 all game or hadn't made a 3, had been sat on the bench. And that essentially was game over for the Aces. They did have another 1 or 2 trips up the floor, but a really, really dramatic way to finish, and quite fitting, though. A game I think the Aces are probably going to want back, because they were in a very commanding position for quite large stretches of that ball game. Again, Mikey, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right. I think Las Vegas were disappointed they didn't close the game out, and they certainly had the opportunity to do it. But then Quigley hit the big shot down the stretch, having come off the bench. But it was a real chess match. We talked last week about how Vegas were going to play, were they going to change styles? And the answer was, they were going to shoot less threes than the year before, which almost seemed impossible. I can't remember how many they shot in the end. I think they were 1 of 6 or something crazy, or 0 of 6. And yeah, they just banged the ball inside. They got Chicago into foul trouble early. And Chicago just about managed to have enough depth to kind of hold on. And yeah, Vegas were 0 of 6. Yeah. And yeah, it was one of those really interesting games. Both teams had struggles at various points in the game. It kind of felt like one team made a run, game would stabilize for a couple of minutes, and then the other team would come right back. And it kind of reminded me of a conference finals type level straight off the bat. And to see that so early on was really impressive. And you kind of walked away and went, both teams are kind of look like they're going to be strong contenders throughout the year.
Kaz, if we can come up. Oh, I've removed Kaz. There we go. Kaz is back. Sorry about that. Kaz, what did you make of this game, quite briefly?
Yeah, this was a really good game to watch. Like Mike said, it was close all the way through. I was expecting Vegas to win this. Actually, it looked kind of a bit one-sided almost in their favour. It looked like Chicago kept trying to keep up and catch back up with them. But Ali Quigley, she can just make that shot in her sleep. It's fantastic. She was having quite a quiet game, and she was on the bench in the last couple of minutes, but she came up when they drew up that play for her to get the pass from Courtney Vandersloot and make the shot. And I think that's something she does really well. She always stays ready. You know, she's not been in the game. She maybe hadn't been shooting as well as she does by her standard because it's so high. But she was ready when they needed her, and she came out firing. Angel McCoughtry looked fantastic as well for Vegas. Her and Asia Wilson were a really good combo there.
Yeah,
I think they'll be very well.
I think you might be right on that one. Angel McCoughtry looked amazing. She got 25 points in the loss, and I think Asia got about 23, something like that. They accounted for an awful lot of what Las Vegas was doing, and I think that's going to be the case with them all season long. Again, Bill Lambier, he wants Angel McCoughtry to shoot, and Asia Wilson with a bit of a freer role, or at least a larger role in overall team chemistry and in the offense. She is going to be able to thrive this season. Final game of Sunday was the Dallas Wings 95, Atlanta Dream 105 at the actually it was a 10 p.m. tip-off on Sunday, and the game before it just would never end. So I think we all came into that one a little bit late. But aside from everybody looking remarkably yellow, what do we make of this game?
Kennedy Carter's the rookie of the year. That's what I took from this game. So I really enjoyed this game as well. This was two young, fast teams that were just shooting and not playing that much defense, but they were shooting and they were scoring. I thought Kennedy Carter looked fantastic, bringing the ball up and running the offense. She didn't look outmatched. She didn't look out of her depth. She looked like she was in control. She wasn't. I think she shot 3 from 10 for the field, but still had 18 points because she was just getting to the basket. Her and was it Monique Billings had another career high, 30 points, and
13 rebounds from Monique Billings.
And I think when they add Courtney Williams to that, it's just going to be Courtney Williams is going to be running the point, so that frees up Kennedy Carter a little bit to get into a bit more of a shooting role where she normally is. She's finding the space, and that'll just make them faster and score more. Something that I did find interesting about this was Atlanta had made 30 of 34 free throws, whereas Dallas only hit 14 of 20. So they weren't making them, but they also weren't getting to the basket. They also weren't drawing the fouls. And I think that's because the team in general, like we were talking about, they're built a bit more to shoot. They've maybe not got that inside presence, which might hurt them a little bit.
Yeah, especially if you're not making what free throws you do get. That's a really good point. They are built for the perimeter game. That's what Coach Agler and Greg Bibb have been building towards so far. Mikey, anything stand out in this game for you?
I think, obviously Monique Billings kind of took the show. She was tremendous. I think she had a career high in the first half and really dominated the game early. But I was really impressed with Dallas's depth. It wasn't something you knew you were definitely going to have for sure, but they really had contributions from everyone. I think they had 5 players in double digits, and then obviously had contributions across the roster in other areas. I thought Katie Lou looked relatively good in the first game for Dallas, but I think there's a little bit more to come from her still. And it's kind of a theme even with Dallas yesterday that their depth is maybe perhaps the biggest takeaway from this weekend for me. Is they've got a number of players, despite being young, that can really step up and influence the game. Obviously, Satu had a relatively rough first night. She had a lot of foul trouble, so she couldn't quite get in that flow. But yeah, Dallas was really impressive. But ultimately, it came down to they couldn't get stops. And that's kind of been the theme of the younger teams this weekend, is they've really struggled with that consistency, especially on the defensive end. And it'll be something they'll kind of go away and look to improve on as the season grows. But you expect that from having such a young team. But ultimately, Atlanta were deserved winners. And yeah, they look like they could really push for the playoffs. And that was kind of the talk before the game even, was everyone was sleeping on Atlanta. And then Holly Rowe came out and said, well, the talk around the bubble is that Atlanta were winning their scrimmages. So it looks like Atlanta maybe have kind of been slept on a little bit by a lot of people.
Let's move on. There was a point I had, and then you carried on speaking. It was all good stuff, and the point went out of my head. So thank you for that. Just a bit of housekeeping, by the way. We have a comment section. We read every single comment that comes in, whether you're watching this live, whether you're watching this on replay, where we do get a lot of viewers. So firstly, thank you, of course, for watching. But also, pop in a comment. Who do you think excelled this weekend? Was Michael's takeaway about the wings, their depth being that was my point. I've just remembered it. Brilliant. The wings and their depth being the biggest takeaway from the weekend. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think? Put it in the comments. We would absolutely love to get it on the show live. And if not, we read every comment that comes in after the fact and we'll respond to you then. Mikey, yeah, a big thing about the way they've built is they've built for versatility, and they've built to have that depth and be able to, just be very switchable, be very flexible. As a coach who loves a deep bench like you do, you've got to be enjoying this.
Yeah, for sure. And it's the thing is, they're so young as well. Everyone, obviously, the highlight kind of was New York because of their 7 rookies, but I think Dallas's average age is actually younger, which kind of made last night really fun to watch as well. And I think we learned a lot about both rosters last night as well. But the thing is, you talk about that also Dallas haven't turned the ball over, and we kind of touched upon it with Phoenix, one of the most experienced teams in the roster, having turnover issues. Dallas have averaged 12 turnovers a game, and they're least in the league through 2 games. So to get them on the same page so quickly has been a really impressive job, not just by the coaching staff, but by the players as well, buying into that philosophy.
Okay, let's. We're going to take a little moment just to. Well, if we had sponsors, traditional sponsors, it would be to pay some bills, but that's not what this is about. This is about using our platform that we have to share the charity work of our friend Ashley Smith. Ashley Smith is the Miss Caribbean UK finalist representing the Cayman Islands, and she is raising money as part of her campaign for the Perfect Day Foundation charity. This initiative will support female netball players in Zambia, an African nation, and aims to address key challenges by teaching girls and young women new skills in order for them to create sellable products made from African wax print material, as well as educate them in the process of running their own small business to help fund their school fees, provide family support, amongst other necessities. The link is already in the description of this video, and we'll also pop a link in the comments. Ash also is a trainer, is a physical trainer, so she runs a weekly workout class, which is free. With, donations are always welcome and wanted for it. She'll put you through your paces. It's really fun. It's really nice. Like, I do it. So that's, I'm a ringing endorsement of this. I'm still aching from it. So that's perfect. And of course, it's such an important thing because the emancipation, the empowerment of women everywhere on the planet is such an important thing. And to help girls go to school, get educated, it's going to improve their life chances. And so, if you want to know more, the link to the charity Just Giving page is in the description. So that's Ashley Smith, the Miss Caribbean UK finalist for the Cayman Islands and her Perfect Day Foundation charity. Also, if you watch Anglia Ruskin Games next year, you will hear her voice on co-commentary. Okay, Tuesday. Let us get into Tuesday's games. And again, I know we went really deep dive on the weekend. We're going to speed things up a little bit just with the real headlines from Tuesday and Wednesday. I hope that's okay with everybody, because it's okay with me. Washington Mystics, 94-89 winners over the Connecticut Sun. We know Kaz is going to have some things to say about that game in just a moment. The Los Angeles Sparks, 78. The Chicago Sky, 96. So, I mean, that is, well, we'll get into it. And the Minnesota Lynx, 66. Seattle Storm, 90. Again, another game that has you looking at it. And I mean, maybe it's just me, but I'm looking at it and I'm a bit like, those are some scorelines that I personally wasn't anticipating. Certainly not that last scoreline. But let's see what you guys think. What was your takeaways from Tuesday's games, Mikey?
I think the big one is obviously we had a record broken on Tuesday night. Sylvia Fowles, now the all-time leading rebounder in WNBA history, did it right at the end of the first half. And yeah, it was a great moment for her. I think the thing that I took away was the timing of it kind of worked perfectly. She got it with 2 seconds to go in the first half. It kind of, the clock ran out, and it meant everyone could kind of stop and congratulate her then and there. Obviously, she had the presentation at Center Court. The Seattle girls were able to go over and congratulate her as well. And I think that moment was really nice, the way it played out, the timing of it. And obviously, it's taken a long time to get there. And she's certainly going to add to that record as this season goes on, and maybe longer. And that was kind of one piece of history we kind of missed last week, touching upon that was going to happen this year. So really, congratulations to her.
And it happened quick. 29 rebounds, if you may have seen on the graphic. 29 rebounds in 2 games of basketball. That's pretty impressive. That is, she's put in serious work on that one. We've got a question from Hugh Hopkins, which I think we'll dive to now before we continue our Tuesday chat. And it does link to the Tuesday chat. Hugh says, if it's not Chicago Sky versus Seattle Storm in the finals, who is it? So that's a great question. And again, that links to Chicago Sky. So far, they've been doing some serious work on people. That 96-78 win over Kaz's Los Angeles Sparks. Sorry about that. And of course, Seattle, a win over the rookie laden Liberty, and then a 90-66 win over the Lynx, who, again, people are expecting them to maybe take a bit of a step this year. What do you think, Kaz?
So in answer to Hugh, I think Chicago, Seattle could very well be the final. If it's not Chicago, though, I could see Vegas getting up there with Seattle. I think Seattle are finals contenders, absolutely. The only thing Chicago might have going against them maybe is the height, the rebounding disadvantage that they might have against some of the other teams, some of the bigger teams like Vegas or Phoenix. But from what we saw them do these last 2 games, they're just clicking. And I think as well that shows how important it is for some of these teams like Seattle, like Chicago, that have kept basically the core intact from last year or a couple of years ago. They've not had new players come in where they've had to get used to new systems, new rotations, new players. They're able to just pick up where they left off, which I think is especially important with a shortened season and with the lack of the training camps and the practices that they've got as well.
Continuity is key. Now, I ask, what do you really need all that rebounding if you're going to have Van der Sloot feeding Quigley for threes to, if the shot's going down, Mikey, Mikey, is this your final? Is this who you've got nailed on for the finals?
I mean, me and Kaz both picked Seattle to win it all last week, and I think Seattle certainly look favourites right now. But I think it's going to be a wide open race. I mean, we're 2 games in, so it's early to say. Chicago's certainly the big winners of the weekend, probably the 2 hardest games on paper. in terms of overall schedule strength. And yeah, to come out with 2 good wins, especially really convincing against the Sparks. But again, it's too early to count out a team like the Sparks. I think we'll learn a lot more about the Mystics this week, and I'll come on to that a bit later on. But you can never count out the defending champions. And then you've always got things that can change out of circumstances, injuries, minutes. Maybe the concern for me is Sky's depth in their rotation. They really only played 7 players on Tuesday night. They got Ruthie Hubbard a few minutes, and then Stella Johnson played right at the end. But they really only played 7, so to keep that up for another 35 games might be a challenge. And suddenly you're 1 injury away from being really 6 deep, and at this level, that's probably not going to cut it. So, yeah, for sure, right now, if you had to pick it, Chicago and Seattle, yes, but I think a lot's going to change between now and the end of August when the regular season kind of starts to wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Hugh, for your question. And again, if you've got a question or a comment and you're watching live, get it in. And if you're watching on replay, get it in, and we'll, maybe use it next week or respond directly to it there and then. Let's talk about the Washington Mystics. You wanted to know, before I do that, Chicago Sky, Diamond DeShields, she was on a minutes restriction on Sunday. I'm not too sure if that was restricted still on Tuesday.
Yeah, she was a bit odd because I thought she might be, but they kind of blew the game out in the 4th, and she kind of played down the stretch in the 4th. So I don't know if the plan all along was her to play 25 minutes and they were just going to get those minutes regardless. But yeah, you kind of thought if they were worrying about her majorly that they wouldn't have played her down the stretch of that game because, say, the schedule turns around so quickly. Chicago back in action again in a few hours' time. So if you kind of thought if you were really looking after her that you would have pulled her and given some more minutes to your rookies. Stella Johnson played the last 80 seconds of the game and that was it. And up 20, you thought maybe that was the opportunity to get her some more minutes, for example. So I'm hoping that the Shields is kind of through it. But until she starts extending into the 28, 30-minute range, you wonder if they are just trying to monitor her a little bit more.
So I want to focus a little bit more on that game between the Washington Mystics, Connecticut Sun, the 94-89 victory. DeWanna Bonner going off again, 29 points, 5 assists. Ariel Powers with 27 points. But for me, the big story of the game and the fight back for the Sun towards the end was led by one woman in particular, and Kaz is going to tell us all about her once again.
Jackie Gemelos, getting her first WNBA game after 1,780 days. So, as we mentioned before, she's been playing in Greece, been playing in Italy, overcome insane injuries. She came off the bench. They were down 13 points. She saw 2 quick 3-pointers and grabbed a rebound as well. Put DeWanna Bonner as well. I think she just made a 3 afterwards, so they were coming pretty close. And then we had Alyssa Thomas with a layup that could have tied it, but missed there. And they made quite a fight back towards the end, and they were still in it with a few 16 seconds left. I think they were down 3. So they pulled it back really well. And I'm so pleased to see Jackie getting some time to score. She played 5 minutes, scored 6 points, beat her career high of already in her first game there. And I think that just shows, you've got all these quality players, and it's so tough to make it in the league. People just need to be ready. Some players just need to be given a chance, and they take that opportunity and they're ready just to come off the bench and do it. So I hope she gets some more playing time, and that would help with the depth as well. The Connecticut starters seem to have a problem with.
See, for me, she was awesome. That was her first shot in the WNBA since 2015, I think it was.
Yeah.
The first shot is a made 3. The second shot, made 3. Now, for me, and again, Mikey might come in here and be like, you're a fool. For me, if that's working and you're late game, keep doing it.
Yeah,
until
absolutely.
it's proved to not work, because they really got hot from outside. They brought the gap real close. They may have, did they tie it, or were they within 1? Or it was very, very close. And then they went away from that. They tried to go inside. Now, they got high percentage looks, I guess, but they weren't dropping and then the game just got away from them at the end. But I don't know. I've got the approach of, if it ain't broke, why are we changing away from it? I don't know. Mikey, what do you reckon?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we were talking about it kind of as the game finished, me and you. But ultimately, Mystics were up 15 with 5.5 minutes to go. Yeah. So Mystics were kind of in the same category as they went away from what was working for a little bit. And then obviously as Connecticut became run. And the late game situations, one, you can argue here, there. Do you go to experienced players? Do you think that they're going to key on her? She's just hit 2 now. Do you run her as a decoy? There's all those little things that can kind of go in. You would have liked to have seen her got another look, but ultimately they got good looks, and they were a wide open layup away with 45 seconds to go from, I think it was tying it up at the time. I think that would have tied it up.
Right.
No, it would have been down 1. So yeah, because Mystics were up 3 and they went for the layup. So yeah, that would have made it a 1-point game with 14 seconds to go. So there's plenty of time left to get another run, and you never turn down a wide open layup at that stage of the game. And you've just got to make it ultimately. But it was interesting because Connecticut really struggled to find people that could score outside of Bonner and Alyssa Thomas. I don't think anyone else got double digits for them. So if they can have someone like that step up and be a third, fourth scorer, it's certainly going to make a difference in the long run.
Okay, go on, Kaz.
I was just going to say, so Mikey, you as a coach, if you saw that in this game, would you then, in the next game they've got coming up, would you play her a bit more? Would you maybe try go into that a bit earlier and see if that works, see if it keeps going?
I think they've got to, because you can't keep rotating the starters as much as they were. I mean, if we just go through the minutes, Bonner played all 40, Alyssa Thomas played 38, and they're back on court again tonight, and then they're back on court on Saturday. I don't think it's sustainable to keep up that higher minutes. Maybe 34, 35 for those players might be sustainable, but it all depends on where she is with her rehab and getting Jackie back into shape as well. It might be that she's not ready for extended minutes yet, just in terms of the layoff. Obviously, don't know what facility she's had access to over the last 3 months. She might have just been able to play for a week before camp, 2 weeks in camp, so she might need that prep time herself. So it'll be interesting to see, but tonight, again, it's going to be a bit more of a difficult game, you think, on paper with the Sparks. And maybe if Minnesota continue to struggle potentially on Saturday, you might see her get an extended run there. We'll see.
Okay, so let's, unless there's anything else major from Tuesday, I'm happy to dive into Wednesday very briefly. And then there's 1 or 2 big news items around the league that I think we want to touch on before we finish. So the Wednesday scores: Phoenix Mercury 100, Indiana Fever 106. This team that had no hope, this team that entered the bubble late, this team that is now beating Greg's Phoenix Mercury. So again, don't know where he is. Maybe this is why. The New York Liberty, they fell to the Dallas Wings, who will have the Rookie of the Year, Satu Sabali. 80-93, Arike Ogunbowale, 20 points in the victory. Atlanta Dream, they fell 70-100 to the Las Vegas Aces. Asia Wilson doing what Asia Wilson do, 21-11 in, I think that's the biggest winning margin of the weekend. Yes, I think it is. Not the weekend of the game so far. Any major takeaways from this? And we will have UNESCO chat in a moment, so don't worry too much about that. Dive in, Michael.
Okay. I think the biggest takeaway, first of all, everyone's sleeping on Indiana, as I kind of thought last week. Everyone predicting them to go under 8 wins, and they're kind of my quiet team to sneak into the playoffs. So I was quite happy that happened last night. My biggest takeaway is Phoenix defense. I mean, we kind of touched upon it earlier. They struggled against the Sparks, but they've now given up 106 and 99 points in their first 2 games back. And for a veteran team, a rim protector with Brittany Griner, that was a real surprise for me, a real takeaway that they just can't seem to get stopped. And to be honest, the scoreline kind of flattered Phoenix in the end. Indiana kind of controlled the game throughout. The early going was a little bit tighter, but then Indiana just never really looked like losing the game, and they tried to throw it away in the last minute of the game, and for sure they'll have to go work on that. But yeah, they really controlled it, and the depth of that Indiana team. We kind of said who's going to step up and score, and that was one of the questions we spoke about last week. And they had 3 players with 20 plus points, 4 players with 18 plus points. Candice Dupree took over early in the game and ended with 23 and 9, and then Tiara McCown probably outplayed Brittany Griner across the 40 minutes, 20 and 13. Griner looked better than she did at the weekend. But yeah, McCown won the battle inside, and that's kind of what helped Indiana dominate. But Phoenix certainly are kind of the big loser of the weekend.
Kaz?
Yeah, Indiana are only going to get better, I guess, as well. So you had Erica Wheeler. They've still got Lauren Cox to come in. I think they're both cleared quarantine, so maybe we'll see them soon. But they were kind of a bit of a weird team for me, Indiana. I didn't really click with me, but they've been quite interesting. Well, they were quite interesting to watch in that game, not the Sunday one. And yeah, I think Mikey's right. They might surprise people. I think they're just kind of getting back into the rhythm of things, and then adding the pieces that they're missing will definitely help.
So Las Vegas Aces putting up a nice 30-point win over Atlanta Dream. Can we read too much into this? Are they definitely finals bound? Is Asia Wilson going to win MVP? These are all the questions that I've got in my head right now.
I think she'll have a really strong campaign for it, but could she be fighting someone on her team for it? Could Angel McCoughtry be, going for that as well? It could be a bit of a battle there. I think what we're going to see, and I don't know if this may be a slight overreaction from the opening games, but almost the league in a 2-tier system with some of the teams like Indiana, Dallas, Atlanta, maybe Connecticut, New York, some of the younger teams, that are going to have really close games, really fast, fun games together. And then you sort of splitting out at the top with the Chicagos, the Las Vegas, the Seattles, the more experienced teams that have got their cores together. And I think, when you get into younger teams like Atlanta and New York playing Seattle, Vegas, they're going to be maybe a bit more one-sided, like this 30-point loss that we've seen here. But then I think when they're playing teams that are a little bit more aligned with them, they're going to be a lot closer, if that makes sense.
Mikey, any final thoughts on you from Wednesday?
I think obviously we'll touch upon the New York-Dallas game in a minute and talk about the rookies in particular. But I think last night was a bit odd. I think Atlanta just had one of those nights when nothing went for them on the 3-point line, and we talked about Vegas not making a free on Saturday and Sunday, and then barely attempting any. And then last night they go 6 of 9. And kind of if Vegas goes 6 of 9 from 3 with their inside dominance, really, they're going to be tough to stop. So if they can continue to shoot at that clip, I think certainly they're going to be right there. And they certainly look like one of the strongest teams coming out. But again, they didn't find a way to win against Chicago. So you never be quite too sure this early on.
Now the 3-point shooting is something that intrigued me over the weekend. Now, when you and I worked at the BBL and WBBL Cup final in Birmingham, we were sort of querying whether or not the arena, the backdrop, all of that makes it more difficult to shoot threes and make threes. And I mean, I was wondering the same thing, at least with the first few games at Feld, because the 3-ball was not dropping Saturday, hardly at all. Sunday, I think it picked up quite a bit, but Saturday, the teams really struggled from 3. Do we think that the arena and the environment that they're in, I don't know, what sort of impact might that have on their shooting ability?
Okay, so this was one of the things I was thinking about. And to be honest, one of my takeaways from the whole weekend was it seemed like an offense-heavy weekend across the league. It felt like scores were up a little bit more. Tempo was, some teams obviously playing a little bit quicker, but it felt like the field goal percentage was up. And I was listening to an interview today by Terrence Ross from the NBA side, and his takeaway was there's so many shooters out in Orlando in the NBA bubble are lights out. And actually, he his theory, and this will directly apply to WNBA, is the venue with the backdrops and not having that issue of depth perception behind the basket is actually helping shooters. So his theory is that actually it's kind of a shooter-friendly arena in Orlando, and the setups are pretty much identical with the backdrops, the black cape behind the wall. So it sounds like the players are thinking it's going to be a shooting-friendly arena down the line. Maybe it was some of the first game back, some nerves for the rookies, but that's kind of what I've heard. And thinking about it, it kind of makes sense. It kind of flips the same thing. BBL players aren't used to such big arenas. Go to a arena with the depth at Birmingham, especially behind the basket on the spectators' end, and that depth perception does change. Therefore, shooting's harder.
Also, I don't know how many BBL gyms have an enormous truck screen behind one of the baskets as well. But, you know, next season, who knows? Manchester's new gym, they might just install a massive new telly behind there. That'd be sweet. Yeah, we get a bit parochial on this show. You're welcome. Kaz, any big Wednesday takeaways before we get into some other NBA business?
So I guess, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the Sabrina's game against Dallas was exciting. And I think...
Hang on. Before you go there, let me just allow me to... Is rookie sensation Sabrina Ionescu struggling to adjust to the WNBA? That is my question to you, Kaz Bullock. 12-6-4 versus the Seattle Storm. Okay, they threw loads of defense at her. Okay, she was facing WNBA triple teams. And then 33-7-7 against the Wings. Is she struggling to make the step? Is she struggling to adjust and adapt?
Absolutely not. No. Okay. She did. I think we saw the crazy takes on Saturday. So Sabrina's only scored 12 points. You know, she couldn't match up against the best defense in the WNBA. Title winners from 2018. She said it herself after the game in a post-game interview. You know, she's a rookie. She's going to have struggles. She said, I'll take that, you know, as a first game. And then look what she does in the second game. It's just a matter of getting comfortable. You could see straight away Seattle were just, like you say, throwing the double teams, triple teams at her. There was no, you know, oh, we'll ease you in. It's no, here's welcome to the WNBA. You're going to have to play against this. But I think she handled it really well. And it's just, the team need to be able to get into those positions where, you know, they can set screens for her. She can work off that and work off the team. She's going to be fine. She's not going to be the rookie of the year, but she's going to be fine.
I just want to make very clear that I think she was great. I think she really, really played well on Saturday. I think she dealt with what was thrown at her extremely well. She put up nice rookie numbers. Okay, it's almost unfortunate. It's a shame that she didn't come out there and absolutely blow the doors off it and get 40 points and 20 assists and all this stuff. That would have been great. Of course it would. We'd have loved that. But she played a really good professional game of basketball, the first professional game she's ever played. And I thought she adjusted to the level really well. And Seattle were out to stop Sabrina. And then she did what she did last night. Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sabrina's biggest downfall this year is going to be who else can consistently score on the New York Liberty.
Yeah. And
take away a bit of that pressure. It'd be interesting to see if Kennedy Carter gets the same type of attention down the line. She's looked as good as Sabrina through 2 games, you can argue. She struggled a little bit more last night. Again, she still looks composed. I think Sabrina, the one thing she'll want to do is cut down on some of the turnovers. I think she had 9 or 10 through 2 games, and that's not really who Sabrina is. But she is trying to throw a couple out on the fast break, and some of that will be just the teammates adjusting to what Sabrina looks for, as much as Sabrina throwing bad passes and things. And yeah, look, Seattle threw everything they had at her. You could tell early on the strategy was make Sabrina give up the ball, and then Dallas down the stretch was don't let Sabrina catch the ball. And if you rewatch the last 6-7 minutes of that game, Sabrina's touches went dramatically down and everything was denying. Dallas threw Katie Lou Samuelson on her, just have a bit more size and length to try and affect the shot. And then they were happy to switch bigs to do the same thing. So both teams have thrown a lot at her, but I think she's handled it really well. And look, we talked about last week. Can she break the rookie record? Well, she wasn't that far off it last night.
No. What is the rookie record? Is it 37?
Can't remember if it's 37 or 40, but it's up there.
Yeah.
But then she's contributing in other areas: 6.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, averaging through 2 games. 40. So yeah, she's contributing in other areas outside of scoring. I do think she'll take a little bit more time to adjust to the defensive end of the court, but I think that's natural for most rookies in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, speaking to rookies throughout training camp, they've been saying the physicality and the speed of the game, and once players adjust to that, they'll be absolutely fine. She's going to be fine. I thought she was absolutely fine on Saturday, and obviously she excelled last night. Though won't win Rookie of the Year because that's going to go to Satou Sabally. Mikey, are you wedded to any of these takes, by the way? Because Kaz is all over Kennedy Carter winning Rookie of the Year. I'm convinced it's going to be Satou Sabally. There's that European bias. I'm not going to lie. Mikey?
I mean, I picked Carter last week just because I think Sabrina down the line is going to be the number one attention day in, day out. And I think
true.
I think Atlanta can take some of that pressure off Carter. I think you've got the likes of Sabally. I think Tay Cooper had a big weekend for the Sparks.
Oh yeah, I thought she was brilliant for the Sparks actually.
And then
the other Saturday,
the other guard that jumped out, and we didn't talk about it earlier, and we should have done kind of recapping the first week, was Crystal Dangerfield was a massive X factor for Minnesota in their win against Connecticut. A little bit quieter again last night, but it'd be interesting to see if she can be an X factor consistently and put her in that race. But with 2 games in, and a lot will change. But you kind of think Carter and Eskew will be a kind of a discussion the whole year, and maybe Satou can have those numbers to kind of jump up. But going against the elite bigs there are in the league every week inside, I think she might have a longer adjustment period, which might favour it going to a guard.
Okay. Fair enough. Who do you think is going to be Rookie of the Year? Get it in the comments. And again, live on replay on demand. We'll read it and we'll come to it next week. So, any other business from the WNBA week that was, Kaz?
Something that came out this week that I thought was pretty cool was Kyrie Irving from the Brooklyn Nets starting a fund to pay players' salaries if they have chosen to opt out for either medical reasons or social justice causes. And he said he wanted to do that. He donated 1.5 million, and he was doing that after he'd spoken to Natasha Cloud and Jewel Lloyd when they were explaining some of the challenges that they face as players, given the choice to opt out due to the salaries not being the same as we have on the NBA. And I think that's a really cool thing for him to do. He's brought a lot of awareness there, and he's also said he's setting up sort of a financial education course for players if they want to be involved in that, to help them handle finances and things and invest in things in the future. So I think that's a great thing he's done.
Okay, Mikey, anything that stood out from the last couple of days?
I think kind of touching upon Kyrie, obviously the job that the WNBA and kind of the NBA, the amount of support we've had from the NBA players over the last week. You've seen that anyone that's watched any of the games has probably seen or been on social media, seen the amount of orange hoodies flying around the Orlando bubble out in the community. I assume we all would like an orange hoodie. So kind of the cool thing of the year, but the amount of support that the WNBA's kind of had, the viewership figures have massively jumped up on ratings in the States. And that's been a huge positive. Obviously, ESPN said they were going to announce more games. I'm not quite sure what the initial delay was, maybe tying it in with the NBA schedule or other activities. But they've announced another 17, I think it is, games to go in their schedule, so they're up to 35 games. And the whole message of social justice issues that the WNBA have got across this weekend. Obviously, they left the floor for the anthems all weekend, and then teams have started to divulge in their own little ways across the last couple of days. A couple of teams knelt for the anthem. Some teams continue to leave the arena, and the amount they've done to promote
before the anthem. We've got to make sure that's real clear because ESPN, they got it wrong. and they got absolutely the league got flogged for it. The players got flogged for it, and it wasn't true and it wasn't fair. And it took 14 hours for somebody to tweet. I think it was anyway for somebody to tweet. Oh, actually, no, it was before. So we've got to be correct. And I know the three of us, we really, really respect and stand for what the WNBA are doing and have been doing. Well, I'm speaking on your behalf, and I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, for sure. And the ironic thing was ESPN have got the one reporter in the wobble.
Yeah.
And they managed to get it wrong.
Holly
was the one that actually the first one I saw that corrected it. And they made it clear on the broadcast that it was before the anthem was played, the players left.
Yeah.
Almost the first thing we saw before who was it? New York and Seattle tipped.
Yeah.
Was the players leaving the arena, then the anthem being played with no one in the arena except a few officials.
Yeah.
And for ESPN to get that wrong didn't look great for the league, but it got corrected. But the teams are going to continue doing stuff throughout the season. We're all doing our own little tributes, and I think it was really well done. Obviously, the NBA get their turn to see what they do over the next few days, but I think the basketball community in the States as a whole has done a great job, and I think they'll continue to do that. And the interaction between the two leagues is only going to help the WNBA grow.
Absolutely. And I second that. If you've got any orange hoodies kicking about WNBA and you fancy sending them over, you just drop us a line, Focus Hoops on all the social media platforms, and we'll let you know our addresses. So, Mikey, I know you wanted to have a little bit of a look forward to a couple of the key fixtures or key games coming up over the next little while. Just having a scroll through. When is our next break?
Monday.
I think is it the case that they get every Monday off, pretty much?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, no games on Monday.
So, what stands out to you, Michael?
We're going to find out about the Washington Mystics this week. You look at that schedule and you go, good luck. We've got Seattle in 2 hours' time, which is going to be a great game. The two of the only undefeated teams left. We've got 3 undefeated teams. 2 of them go again. And then they hit the other undefeated team on Saturday in Chicago Sky. And then just when you think it gets easier, no, the Vegas Aces roll in on Wednesday. I say roll in. Obviously, everything's in the same place. But yeah, you're gonna learn a lot about Washington. If Washington come out of that at 4-1, we're going to be really talking about, are they a serious contender to repeat? Because obviously everyone was thinking maybe they've lost a little bit too much. But if you can go through that stretch at 2-1, then you think on paper at least the schedule will soften a little bit, and they're going to suddenly get to halfway with 2 or 3 losses, and that's going to be in contention for a number 1 or number 2 seed, I'd expect. So I think all eyes are kind of, for me, on the Mystics this week, and I think obviously Ish will probably chime in next week, being known to Mystics well, but he's certainly got a big week to look forward to of really competitive games for them.
He does indeed, and a name that I heard quite a bit on the Mystics games this weekend, well, this past couple of days, was Shea Petty. So big shout out to Shea Petty and Ishmael Fontaine, who is penned in for next week. Kaz, are there any fixtures that stand out to you, or games that stand out to you? I suppose that's a real Britishism, isn't it?
So Saturday we've got Atlanta and New York, which I think will be a good one. Kennedy Carter and Sabrina going against each other, and again, two young teams. So I think that game will be quite close. That could be New York's first win, I think, possibly.
That's tomorrow.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry, Friday night.
It's Friday into Saturday morning, midnight tip.
I've got the UK times.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a good one. And then later on, the Storm and LA, which I think is that Sunday, Saturday.
Storm LA is Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So what's that? 2 a.m. 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh. The Saturday games are a little bit later this week. They are 4, 6, and 8 Eastern. Takeaway 5. But Sunday's games are beautifully timed. 1 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Eastern, and 6 p.m. Eastern. So big shout out to whoever scheduled Sunday. That's going to be a beautiful day of basketball enjoyment without having to be wicked tired at the end of it all. more? Oh, go on.
I think the other thing for me is to see if we can kind of get a bit of a flow into the league. It's not a criticism at all of the referees. I think they've done a relatively good job and relatively consistent, but it felt like there was a lot of stop-starts, a lot of free throws over the past two rounds of games. A lot of stoppages for like just getting the scorers up to date with how to work the WNBA, because obviously they don't have a WNBA team down, then obviously the system's a little bit different, and we've kind of lost a little bit of the flow of games at times. A lot of offensive fouls I mentioned earlier, and if those things can tidy up, I think the games will flow a little bit more, and I think that'll help teams settle, and ultimately is what trend will start to be able to talk a bit more about what direction the league's going in. Obviously it kind of feels like an offensive league right now, so is that the way this whole season's going to go, or the defense going to start to climb in, and does the defense just need that 2-3 extra weeks that they normally have in preseason but they've not had this year, just to get everyone on the same page regards to schemes and things? And I think this week we'll start to really be able to see which direction the league's going, because we've had so many fluctuations in games and in teams' performances, even from game 1 to game 2. Some teams look really bad at the weekend, look great yesterday, and vice versa. So I think we'll start to see a little bit more of a trend through this week. And with 3 games in a week, it's gonna be a really indication to see how the league starts to shake out.
Yeah, that was the thing that really stood out for me, particularly on Sunday. There was, I think it was the CBS game, so it's the final game of the weekend, and it was just they couldn't get the score right. I think, it was Dallas Wings, Atlanta Dream, and they had no idea what the score was for stretches. And it's just, I understand the volunteers, but how are we in the top league in the world, and there are issues about the score? That struck me as a little bit. But again, it's a difficult period. They've done an amazing job to get the league on, to get the games going. And on the whole, except for the very minor or very few issues, it's been absolutely brilliant. But I agree with you. It would be nice to see a bit more of a flow to the games. I'd forgotten about TV timeouts, though.
The orange screen.
We are, the orange screen. The orange screen of doom. Hannah Shaw despises the screen, and rightly so. We are so spoiled in Europe with just a game of basketball. We'll just fly by, and that's a good thing, because you don't lose that flow. I don't know. Maybe Mikey would love. We know that you would love an opportunity to sit down for 2 minutes and break clipboards and shout at people and all that, but the rest of us just want to see a game progress. Actually, you're very calm, coach, for the most part.
I have one, but I think you're right. It's the average game time's been over 2 hours, which has kind of been a little bit tough. I know they start a few minutes late, but I'd probably say the average game time's about 2 hours to 2 hours 5, which for 40 minutes is pushing the lengths a little bit. If we can get that down, it'll certainly help with games ideally not overlapping as well. Obviously, you've got some of the midweek ones automatically overlap, but having to miss the first 5-6 minutes of the game because the other one's going down the stretch, and it's not really okay. We all know the fourth quarter of a tight game is going to take longer, but the fact is the fourth quarter is starting an hour and 40 minutes into the game. And for a viewing fan, it's not ideal. I'd also like to say, WNBA, can we have the tap to cheer button work in the UK?
Oh, yeah.
And I assume across all of Europe, because you wouldn't think that something like that would need to be geo-blocked. And I'm not quite sure why it is. But I was advertising all the broadcasts we get, and then we go to tap to cheer and we're not allowed. So if we could fix that, that'd be nice as well. So just to see the results and how that pans out as well, and the support teams are getting. Those numbers were great. I think one of the games had over 500,000. So obviously people are interacting with the league, as we kind of mentioned earlier, and that's a great sign.
I think that's a brilliant way for us to finish, unless, Kaz, you've got anything really pressing to add?
No, I was just going to say I really like seeing the support that the players have been giving each other on social media. Players that have opted out and aren't there supporting their teams, and also just players, talking to each other, highlighting plays and things. I just think it's been the getting the word out there. The marketing side of it's doing quite well this season.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for today then. Thank you so much to Kaz Bullock, as your nameslate has said today, basketball royalty up in Manchester. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And Michael HANSON-MORRIS, thank you as always for your coaching insights. WNBL D1 Coach of the Year, Michael HANSON-MORRIS. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mikey.
Thank you, Darren.
And of course, thank you everybody for listening. And again, if you've listened live or watched live, or if you're watching on replay, thank you so much. Your support means an awful lot to us. Again, comments, questions, tweets, whatever, get them in, and we'll love to have you even more part of the show. We'll be back next Thursday, and until then, we'll speak to you.